Okay, so let's talk about the first half of 2025. India's military has been busy. I mean, a whirlwind of joint exercises, new drills, major deployments. They've been unfolding all across the globe. But here's the thing. This isn't just random activity. It's not just noise. It's a message. So the big question is, what exactly is India trying to say?
So let's try to frame this whole thing with one simple question. What if military drills were a language? What if you thought of every single troop movement, every joint patrol, every air combat exercise? What if each one was like a carefully chosen word, right? A word in a much bigger strategic sentence.
Because, in 2025, India is speaking volumes. So our job here for the next few minutes is to be the translators. We're going to try and decode the messages being sent by one of the world's really big, rising military powers.
All right, so where do we start? Let's begin with the inner circle. This is where India is really doubling down on its most crucial strategic partnerships, creating this deep web of alliances with other major powers. Take the India-France relationship, for example. It's an absolute cornerstone, and it covers everything, a complete tri-service partnership. You've got the Army's exercise Shakti, the Navy's Varuna, and get this, that one saw both nations' aircraft carriers operating side by side. Then there's the Air Force's super advanced Garuda drills. All of this just shows an incredibly deep, comprehensive military bond, and that's absolutely crucial for cooperation in the Indian Ocean.
And it's a very similar story with the United States. You have established exercises like Yudhabhyas for the Army and COPE India for the Air Force. But what's really interesting is that 2025 pushed this relationship into a whole new domain with something called Tiger Claw. Now, this was the first ever joint exercise between India's Garud Commandos and the U.S. Air Force's Special Tactics teams. This move into elite, specialized operations, it signals a whole new level of trust and complexity in the partnership.
And rounding out this inner circle, you have Japan. The fact that we're on the 6th edition of Dharma Guardian, well, that signals a really steady, consistent commitment. Here, the focus isn't so much on flashy new tech, but on something arguably more important: fundamental, ground-level interoperability. It's all about building that essential trust and the shared procedures that really form the bedrock of any strong military alliance. Okay, so these core alliances, they're just the foundation. From here, India is also expanding its strategic footprint, and it's doing that by forging new connections across Central Asia, South Asia, and, really importantly, into Africa.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It shows this constant rhythm of engagement, right from February all the way through June. Exercises with the Maldives, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Mongolia, they're about more than just training. They're about positioning India as a reliable security partner, as a stabilizing force across its entire wider neighborhood.
And this whole expansion idea, it's probably best captured by a single number: 1. As in the first ever edition of a brand new exercise called AIKME. That stands for the Africa-India Key Maritime Engagement. This wasn't just some other bilateral drill. This was a major diplomatic and naval initiative. So this was co-hosted with Tanzania, and it involved 8 other African nations. AIKME is what brings India's Mahasagar vision to life. And this concept, Mahasagar, it stands for security and growth for all in the region. That is a bold statement. It's projecting India's maritime security role all the way to the east coast of Africa and really positioning it as a key partner for the continent.
So, okay, India's solidified its core partnerships, it's expanded its regional reach. What's next? Well, now we see India stepping onto the global stage, playing as a key player in some of the largest, most complex multinational exercises on the entire planet.
I mean, just look at the scale we're talking about here. We're not talking about little 2-country drills anymore. Oh no, you've got Desert Flag in the UAE that involved 12 different air forces. You've got Conquest in Mongolia, bringing together 24 nations for peacekeeping training. And then there's Talisman Sabre. Yeah, that's in a whole other league.
43,000. Think about that. That's the number of military personnel from over 20 nations who took part in Talisman Sabre, this massive biennial exercise led by Australia and the US. For India to be a part of this, the largest military exercise in the entire Indo-Pacific, that is a powerful signal of its intent to help shape the region's security architecture. And then you have an exercise like the French-led La Pérouse, which really stands out because it has this laser-focused strategic objective. See, this isn't just about general naval cooperation. It's a 2-phase operation specifically designed to practice securing the Malacca, Sunda, and Lombok Straits. We're talking about 3 of the world's most critical maritime choke points. So this is serious stuff.
But of course, right, all these international partnerships, they don't mean much if your own house isn't in order. And that's why, in 2025, India has shown this intense focus on modernizing its own forces. And, this is critical, making sure they can all fight together as one cohesive unit.
And the driving philosophy behind this modernization is crystal clear. The Indian Army officially declared 2025 as the year of tech absorption. Now, this is not just a catchy slogan. It's a top-down directive. The goal is to fast-track cutting-edge technology. We're talking drones, AI, from the lab directly into the hands of soldiers on the front lines.
And we're already seeing this directive in action. Exercises with names like Drone Prahar and Divya Drishti, which means divine sight, were held in really challenging, high-altitude areas like Sikkim and Arunachal Pradesh. And the whole point was to specifically test and validate the use of drones, AI systems, and networked sensors in real-world, tough combat scenarios.
And what this really highlights is the full spectrum of readiness that India is aiming for. So on one hand, you have Prachand Shakti, which is all about demonstrating high-tech warfighting with AI and drones. And then on the other hand, you have Exercise Rahat, which brings the military together with civilian disaster response teams to prepare for humanitarian crises. The message is pretty clear. Be ready for anything and everything.
And all of this, really, it culminates in one massive event, Tropex 25. This is the big one. We're talking about a massive, 3-month-long theater-level exercise. It's led by the Navy, but it involves every single branch of the military. It spans the entire Indian Ocean, and it has one single goal: to test and prove that the Indian Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard can operate as a single, lethal, totally integrated fighting force.
So, okay, when you step back and you look at all these drills together, from Special Forces training in Rajasthan to massive naval fleets out in the Pacific, what is the big picture? What's the final translation of this military language India is speaking?
The bottom line is, none of this is happening by accident. It's a very clear 4-part strategy. First, strengthen those core alliances with major powers. Second, expand your influence to become the region's go-to security partner. Third, project power on the global stage. And fourth, and maybe most importantly, relentlessly modernize and integrate the forces you have at home.
You see, every exercise, every partnership, every new piece of technology, it's a word in that sentence we talked about. And that sentence speaks of a rising power that is confidently shaping its own destiny. And that, of course, leaves us with the critical question for the second half of the year. What will India's next move be on the global stage? Thanks for tuning in.